Good evening and welcome to SVG-TV News for Monday, May 9th, 2022. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is describing the recent gas subsidy implemented to give shield to Vincentians from rising global oil prices as problematic for the government's purse. A gas subsidy came into effect for St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Sunday, May 1st, with government implementing a 50% waiver on the excise taxes charged on the importation of fuel. The new measures came on the heels of an arrangement signed between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela for over $100 million in debt relief. The government decided to keep prices at the pump steady and observe the expected fuel increases, which will come at a cost of $3 million Eastern Caribbean dollars over the next 3 months. On the WFM Issues at Hand program on Sunday, PM Gonsalves said it will be a huge financial burden for government to maintain the subsidy.
Remember, we do a rolling 3-month average. And on the occasion last month, when it came for the rolling 3-month average, it didn't happen. So it should have gone up to $15 and nearly $16. But we kept it at that price. Because if you listen carefully to what Camilo is saying, that what he wants to do from the Ministry of Finance is to keep it below the magical figure as long as he possibly can of $15 per gallon. And the extent to which we can hold it at that is going to be real problematic, you know.
In reviewing the economic performance for the first 3 months of 2022, PM Gonsalves said government revenue increased more than 5%. He also says the current account deficit is small.
At the end of March, our revenues for the first 3 months of the year went up by 5.2%. Our expenditure went up by 3.8%. The current expenditure, just a small current account deficit, and we have a primary balance in the surplus. The revenue items which are performing here are taxes on goods and services up by 14%, taxes on international trade by 13%, taxes on sales of goods and services 34%. The broad base of the taxes performing, at least in the first 3 months, pretty okay. But the additional monies we have to spend, either in subsidies or in reducing the extent of our taxes, like for instance, on the excise tax for gas and diesel, and the custom service charge in respect of LPG, it's significant revenue loss for us.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the wider CARICOM community is in discussions on a decision to attend the 9th summit of the Organization of American States, the OAS, to be held in the United States next month. The decision to attend or boycott is in regards to possible slight against Venezuela should an invitation be extended by the U.S. to opposition leader Juan Guaido as opposed to President Nicolas Maduro. The 16th member regional governing body is also expressing concern about whether or not Cuba will be invited to the OAS meeting. Speaking on the radio on Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said if Guaido attends the meeting for Venezuela, it will be an act of folly. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda has also expressed similar sentiments, saying the island does not recognize Guaido as the president of Venezuela. PM Gonsalves said if Guaido attends on behalf of Venezuela, it is unlikely that Caribbean heads of government would attend.
If Guaido goes to represent Venezuela, if the Americans were to do that, it would be an act of folly. And I think it would be unlikely that Caribbean governments would go. The question which you have to ask, which CARICOM would resolve, is whether or not you're going to stay away and protest or go and protest. So those are options which are available. There has not been a clear determination yet.
PM Gonzalez, who recently returned home from Caracas after meeting with President Maduro on financial initiatives to assist in Vincent and the Grenadines, says it appears as if the Biden administration is choosing occasions when they want to recognize Maduro as the head of Venezuela. He says leaders of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States are to discuss further the plans for attending the upcoming summit.
There was a consensus in Belize, which was reported in the press, that if Cuba were not invited, or Venezuela, the CARICOM wouldn't attend the summit. And on that consensus, there is ongoing discussion with the Americans and other persons in the hemisphere, but very much among ourselves in CARICOM. Despite all the talk, and as I said to my American friends when they talk to me about anything but Guaido, I ask a simple question. Why did the President of the United States didn't send a delegation to Guaido to discuss oil? Why they send them to Maduro? If they consider Guaido to be the President of Venezuela, I mean, this is absolute fiction. Nonsensical, unworthy of our of putting it to our. It's an abuse of our intelligence, really.
As the hurricane season quickly approaches, the government of SVG has been working tirelessly to have all persons who remain in shelters relocated so the necessary preparations of the various shelters could begin. This update was provided by Minister of National Mobilization, Social Development, Housing and Informal Settlement, Randy Brewster, on the API's talk show program this morning.
We're trying our best. It's a collaboration between the Ministry of Education, NEMO, and my ministry, Social Development, where we're trying to get the shelters, free, so we could prepare for the upcoming June to November hurricane season. So, it's been not a Herculean task, but we're doing it, bit by bit and getting it accomplished. The last two, well, there are about three close to my constituency here, and one, the Kittels Learning Resource Center that has been closed. There are a few in the Redland Hills Center. We're working now to see how we can get them into rental accommodations. And we still have a few folks at the Golden Year Center in Pembroke. They're more elderly, and that is not one of the emergency shelters in our country, but we still staff there. We have the home helpers going in there on a daily basis to help wherever they can. So we are making strides to get the centers, ready for the upcoming hurricane season. But in doing so, we are making sure that when we move folks from the centers, that we are providing an alternative accommodation for them, whether it's being rented apartments and so on and so forth.
Minister Brewster says additionally his ministry is working hard to complete the homes that are being built for those who would have lost their homes as a result of natural disasters last year. Brewster says there's a great demand for the 27 prefabricated homes in Orange Hill, and the government of Venezuela has pledged over 100 additional homes to SVG.
Is $0. And added to that, they are fully furnished. We are not giving anyone a shed. Those homes include bedding, refrigerator. We have couch, the chair set, kitchen cabinets. So they're coming. Basically, you're handed a key for just to get your clothing and move in. So at the start, that is why I tell you, I do not get distracted by the site talk. I was placed here to do a job, which part of it is housing, and I'm going to do that. Now there's a rush for these 27 homes, but what is really what is really warmed my heart is that not only are we getting 27, but the government of Venezuela has pledged an additional 150 homes, prefabricated homes, and those would add to the housing stock going forward. So just between Musty Company, which is 41, we have the 27 up in Orange Hill, which would take us to about 68 or so. And then we have another 150, which would take us to close to 280 homes, that newly constructed homes, which would help with the fallout here of over 800 and some.
The housing minister says the homes in Orange Hill are about 95% completed, and the ministry is hoping to have the entire project completed by the end of this month, so persons would be able to move in and settle before the hurricane season begins.
So we did a lot of work. We have to put in the plumbing, the electricals, and so on and so forth, and the interior. But they're about 95% completed, and we should be wrapping up the housing part of it, hopefully by the end of this week. And then RACSA, I spoke with Minister Daniel. They're supposed to start infrastructure work such as road and drains, hopefully this week. So we want to get these homes finished, possibly by the end of May, all being well. So that's where we are.
The ruling Unity Labour Party, ULP, has applied to the Physical Planning Department for permission to keep the billboards at French's in Kingston on display permanently. The two ULP billboards showing party leader Dr. Ralph Gonsalves with the caption "World Boss" and the second with the Prime Minister, Member of Parliament for South Central Windward Suboto Caesar, and Member of Parliament for East St. George, Camilo Gonsalves, with a vote ULP caption have on erected since the general elections in November 2020. Member of Parliament for East Kingston, that's opposition Member of Parliament for East Kingston, Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble, questioned the minister with responsibility for the planning department, Montgomery Daniel, during last Thursday's sitting of Parliament, inquiring why the billboards have not been removed. The billboards were damaged by fire on two separate occasions and were replaced each time. Minister Daniel revealed that the ULP made an application on April 1st to the planning department to have the billboards there permanently, adding the board will make the final decision on the length of time the billboards remain.
And it is before the board of approval and is awaiting the approval of the board. The Physical Planning Department cannot say whether or not the Unity Labour Party intends to remove or to keep these billboards where they are. The mere fact that an application is before the Physical Planning Board for a permanent basis, this, Madam Speaker, is an indication that the intent will be for a long time. The length of time that these billboards stay in that location will depend on the legal status that is before the board.
Minister Daniel questioned why the concern about the permanent erection of the billboards. He also said if they are deemed illegal, the planning department will make the necessary steps to have them removed.
If one drives around this country, there are still many posters and billboards from opposite sides that are still existing. So therefore, why the concern for that at the French's Gate? Under the Town and Country Planning Act, the Physical Planning Department has the authority to remove billboards or any other structure or any other development that is illegal in this country. At the moment, the billboards are not illegal since they are on private property and applications are before the Physical Planning Board. I'm sure that the physical planning department will take the necessary steps once the structures are illegal to do what is required.
Local nurses will be recognized for their dedication to the island's health sector during a difficult year. During the activities for International Nurses Week. The week of activities runs from May 6th to the 12th and is being held under the theme Nurses Voice to Lead, Invest in Nurses and Respect Rights to Secure Global Health. Chief Nursing Officer with the Ministry of Health, Dr. Elizabeth Medford, says the COVID-19 pandemic has shown how important nurses are in healthcare, and despite the fact that thousands of nurses have died globally, they still continue to offer their service. She says nurses in SVG showed tremendous grit and commitment to nursing care, even at times when they were personally affected by the COVID-19 virus and the eruption of La Soufrière volcano.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, some of our nurses would have been affected by the virus in that they came down with the COVID infection. And despite them being infected and recovered, they went back to work and served faithfully. We had nurses who were displaced during the volcanic eruption, and even though they were displaced, living in a different area away from home, they quickly got back to work, and they continue to work despite being personally affected by what was going on.
Dr. Medford says the extraordinary frontline workers will be placed in the spotlight on International Nurses Day on May 12th.
Award plaques will be given to all nursing personnel who would have attained 30 years service as of the 31st May 2022. A total of 64 persons will be awarded. Award certificates will be given to all nursing personnel who had attained perfect attendance in 2021. Gift certificates with a focus on self-care will be given to nursing staff by random selection during the live broadcast. Each nursing personnel will be credited with 2 extra days in appreciation for their commitment and dedication to duty, particularly over the past year.
This month is also celebrated as Child's Month under the theme Smile, in which it is widely accepted by many schools across SVG. On SVG-TV's Viewpoint program last Sunday, a panel of well-learned professionals in the education field shared with viewers the importance of having children understand the importance of feeling important and love. Senior Education Officer for Early Childhood Education, Etienne Williams, shared with viewers the thoughts that lead to the selection of this year's team.
During that 2-year break, our children would have gone through tremendous challenges. Loss of instructional time. Some of them, they went through various forms of abuse, and it wasn't really a nice time for our children. So when one of our counselors approached us, Ms. Chakira Kamabach, she's the composer of this year's Child Month team, and we had that discussion, we thought that it would be good for us to bring back some smiles on our children's faces. So hence the reason for the team. We want to reaffirm and reassure our children of their value to us and also to the society. So the team I Am Smile. Smile is an acronym for special. We want our children to feel special. We want them to feel marvelous. We want them to know how important they are. We want them to feel love, and we also want them to know that they are enough regardless of what happened to them.
Williams acknowledged that although the island is still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of cases continues to trend downwards. And as a result, the ministry will be staging several activities to celebrate the month, which would include a new feature, Kinky Hair Day.
This idea came about from the staff of the Bible Early Childhood Development Center. An effort for these children to feel themselves. want to feel themselves. So they are having that day. So your hair, they want to embrace, well, you know, in the Caribbean, most of us, our hair type and all of that. So on that day, we want to embrace our culture, who we are. Our children are enough, right? Yes, different hairstyles would make us look, might enhance our beauty and all of that. But we also want our children to know, however they are enough.
Vice President of the SVG School Guidance Counselors Association, Cherian Pompey Isaacs, says as a result of not having face-to-face classes for almost 2 years, they have observed children across SVG displaying a number of symptoms which points to fear, depression, and post-traumatic disorder. Health psychologist and CEO of the Value Experience, Dr. Josel Miller, says these behavioral issues are expected with a change of environment or situation.
From our standpoint in the Ministry of Health as well, and even from my private standpoint of the Value Experience, I've seen a lot of children present with behavioral issues. And part of it is now where they are being reintegrated into the school system, having had some lax time. So now it's like getting them back into the structured mindset is not really going very well. A lot of kids were not actually followed up in terms of making sure that they are on top of their academics. So when you get back into school and you're trying to push ahead, you realize that a lot of the remedial things dropped off. So some children are not counting very well anymore, they're not reading, they pretty much are still in a play mindset and trying to get them to understand that we have to do catch-up. And what does catch-up mean? That we have a bulk of work now that are being sent home, and even parents are complaining that, okay, I have to sit with my child to do hours and hours of work. And we ask, where does the buck really stop? Because at the end of the day, you have to push ahead, but you can't push ahead until you go backwards.
The St. Vincent Handbook by Robert Anderson, a book on the history of this country, was originally published in 1907. The 5th edition of the book was published in 1938, and now in 2022, the book was republished and launched at a ceremony at the Methodist Church Hall on May 5th. Speaking at the launch, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves noted that history is for us to understand ourselves, who we are, what we have been, where we are going, what we are capable of. PM Gonsalves said that though the author Robert Anderson did not leave a perfect history in his book, the account he gave is very noteworthy. PM Gonsalves said that more Vincentian history needs to be recorded and documented, and that is why the government initiated the National History Project, which encompasses a comprehensive and accurate history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 2 volumes, noting that the books will also be done in a manner which will allow for use in schools. Noted historian Dr. Adrian Fraser, who is one of 4 historians on the National History Project, praised the partnership between Games Book Center and co-publishers Mark Edrick and Ruth Boingord of Hobo Jungle Press in ensuring the transformation of the book, as the older version, which he has, is now very old and worn. Dr. Fraser said he uses the book as a point of reference, especially for dates as well as information that are not easily or readily found elsewhere, noting that its content is very useful. The publishing of the book saw an increase of font size, a change of font use, and indentation, among others. Also present at the book launch was proprietor of Games Book Center, Dennis Games, who was instrumental in the initiation of the republishing. East Caribbean Group of Companies, ECGC, Agri-business seminar, Together We Grow, is a theme of a seminar which will be hosted by the company for local livestock farmers, scheduled to take place at the Methodist Church Hall on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. The company said at the seminar, local farmers will receive vital information about how to better manage their businesses and become familiar with opportunities available through various funding agencies. Business Development Field Officer at the Center for Enterprise Development, Nisha Glasgow, and Technical Product Manager, Feeds at ECGC, Dr. Tahoma Richards are the featured speakers for the event. Some 60 livestock farmers are expected to attend the seminar. The company said the objectives are to give farmers a better understanding of how to grow their businesses, highlight the importance of reinvesting, and help farmers to become familiar with programs that offer financial aid in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Added to the event, different financial institutions are expected to have booths displaying the lending opportunities available to small businesses.